the reason we die used to be, lots of different accidental things and labor and infections and traumas. But we are much better at taking care of those than we used to be. And so fewer and fewer people are dying from such things. The great majority of people, in fact, over 85% of people in the Western world now die of something called senescence. Senescence is a word that describes basically the aging of your body and the gradual breakdown of the functions of the body and the slow deterioration that eventually leads to death. The underlying mechanism for senescence is basically the breakdown of the balance between what is created, what is born, and what dies, and then what stays in between. So if a system is growing, if a child, for example, is growing and they have a certain number of cells, what they need to do is to grow those cells over time. So they go through a process called mitosis. And in mitosis, you have one cell to begin with. It divides and becomes two eventually. And in a child, a lot of these will be healthy. Both of them will remain. But as we get older and we get more cellular damage accumulated in our bodies, then we will have a problem with the transition from this cell that is now old and somewhat injured, who wants to divide and give rise to a healthy daughter cell. It's no longer able to do that. This process of mitosis, where the cells divide, when one cell divides, is often a solution for the problems that that old cell had. So that cell may have had too much in the way of plastic in it, or too much in the way of Epstein-Barr, or some toxic metal, or whatever the problem was. When that cell divides, it makes a decision that, hey, you know what, we're going to hang on to a lot of the older and sicker mitochondria and the parts of the junk that the cell has built up that we can't get rid of. We're going to put it all on one side so that we can have a healthy daughter cell that can go on and be free of these problems. But if the cell is damaged to the point where it cannot muster enough energy to actually go through that division, or it has viral infections, and the purposes of those viral infections are to make sure that the cell cannot divide, then we get stuck with a bunch of old cells that cannot rejuvenate themselves and have babies to replace them. And so with the accumulation of those older cells in our body, the functions don't happen quite as efficiently, and this gives rise to problems that eventually will lead to death. One of those problems is called immune senescence, and I have a different talk where we talk about how the immune system undergoes this exact same process, and as a result cannot do the surveillance that it normally does for cancers or subacute and dormant infections. And so as a result, these guys take off and